I sat at my mom's house. It was an interesting scene. It was my mom's house, but it was different. And not in a good way. So I sat there and I watched as people dressed in all white robes that hung loose, showed no features, and had hoods over their heads with only small holes for eyes. They sat there and they were prisoners. Prisoners to a creature that is difficult to explain, to describe, but I will certainly try my best. This creature had a slouched figure. Flesh was of human color, but its fingers were long and skinny and a little bit sharp, even though it had no nails of any sort. Its back legs were like that of a horse or a dog, and its face was the worst. There was no features. It wasn't even shaped as if there had been features. There was no eyes, no nose, no mouth, not even ears, and surely no hair. And yet, this creature was able to speak as if it did have a mouth. So when I heard this creature's voice, I didn't hear it in my head. I heard it with my ears. And its voice was like that of a woman. At least, that's what it seems like to me. So, I watched as this creature pulled a man to be executed. And the reason he was being sent to death was in the hands of another man on the sidelines, who sat there and begged, saying, "I did it. It was me. I did it." This innocent man was being convicted for a crime he did not commit. I don't know why I did it, but I brought the second man to the creature's attention. I showed her that he was the one who had the paraphernalia. He had a piece of paper in his hand that was apparently so horrible that it demanded death. And I will never forget what that creature did. 'Cause the creature, she looked at me. Let's call it a she just because of the womanly voice. At least it seemed like she looked at me. She turned her head in my direction, that was for sure. And she walked over and she spotted the paper, to which she then plucked it out of his hands, placing it in the hands of the innocent man, saying, "Now he's guilty." And so I went after her. I tried to fight her for this man's life. But apparently that is an action worth death. As I fought her, she instantly turned on me, no longer paying attention to the so-called guilty man. And so I ran. I ran away from this creature, but I wasn't fast enough. The creature caught me right when I reached my old playhouse. And she threw me against the wall. The strength of this creature was inhuman, suiting for her. And so I acted. I decided to play a part. I acted as though I was going to follow her back, and she fell for it. Her and her minions, creatures of similar look but not quite as exaggerated as her, a little bit paler, a little bit whiter, almost like paper. After I created this illusion of following her to my death, I ran again in the opposite direction. I knew as soon as I got past the property line I would be safe. But curses for my mother for having so much land. I ran for my life, but soon she realized that I wasn't following. I heard her curse, and then it felt as though some unnatural force was pulling back on me as I ran. I could feel her gaining on me without even having to look back. I didn't even hear her footsteps. She was silent. But I knew she was coming. And I knew she was coming for me. And so, finally, I reached the property line, and I jumped, sailing past and landing in the dirt beyond. And she stood there, right at the property line. She had been so close, inches from catching me. Just looking in my direction. Looking being the objective word. And she paced like a creature in a cage, as did her little minions. And I sat there in the dirt, so glad that I had made it. But I still had one problem. My mother was still in there, and I would have to go back in to get her out.